Hi, it's Neeraj Ramnani, and in this blog I want to talk to you about investors. Now, I asked this question to my email list about what specifically they would like me to answer in these video blogs, and most of the questions that I received were about how do we raise funds. And then I tend to reply to these people and ask them what kind of stage are they at in their startup, and unfortunately most of them were just ideas. They just had a rough idea. Many of them were people even in college who had not even completed their degree but just wanted to know about how to raise funds. And I think this is a big problem with our startup culture right now, which is the obsession with funds. You need to realize that finding funds is, number one, the most easy part of any startup. Second is that it is far from the most important thing. The most important thing about any startup is creating products or services which customers really want. And the second is to talk to your customers or talk to potential customers and understand what they want. If you can do these two things, then you don't have to worry too much about other things. And things are going to fall much more easily in place, and investors are going to look out for you if you really get these two things right. If you've created a business or product which customers really want, and if you've constantly interacted with these customers to refine this product even more. And in this case, you will build a business which investors want because it is growing, it has got some traction, and it also shows that you've put some time into this, so you're completely committed to your business. The problem with the way a lot of youngsters are now approaching funding is that it's almost like a desperation that they have. It's like they just want a shortcut way of finding some guy to be willing to put money into their business. And that kind of mindset is almost never going to work when you're looking to raise funds. Maybe 1 in 1,000 might get lucky and raise funds in this kind of attitude, but you will find that most of them will not be able to raise funds because most investors are very smart people and they interact with hundreds of startups. So they understand these patterns very quickly. And you need to be rather in a state of confidence and clarity when you raise funds rather than a state of desperation. In the sense that you want to have a little bit of traction, you need to have a lot of expertise in your business, and you need to have confidence that whatever money is going to be put into your business will be used in the right way. So a little roadmap about where you want to use these funds and why you want to raise funds in the first place. In the last couple of years, the number of startups I've talked to, about 50 to 60% of the startups that wanted to raise funds, I felt that they did not really need to raise funds because they were doing very well bootstrapping. And as long as you can avoid raising funds, you really should, because there are a lot of disadvantages of raising funds as well. For example, there will be restrictions on what kind of things you can do because the investors are going to be involved with a lot of the bigger decisions, and so the independence that you seek as a startup owner might be compromised to some extent. And the second thing is they will focus a lot more on speed and growth, and maybe that's not the way that you want to go. Maybe you want to go a little slower than what they aspire to, etc. And that's going to put a lot of pressure on your company to just perform very fast and give them the numbers. The third thing is when you start small and bootstrap your way up, you understand the ground level realities of your business much better. You do the customer service yourself, you do all kinds of interactions yourself. In many cases, you even develop the product yourself. And in such cases, you will tend to know your industry much better than somebody who had funds right from the start and could just employ people to do these things. And so eventually when you do raise funds in such businesses where you bootstrapped and struggled your way up in the initial days, you will find that your knowledge of the market is much better and you do things which are really scalable, and that's when you need to raise funds. Another thing that you need to understand is that the risk and reward are always correlated. And so if entrepreneurs want to raise funds very early in their startup, they're going to have to compromise a huge amount of equity to get a very small amount of money. The reason why they'll have to do that is because the investors are taking a big risk in investing a startup like this, which does not have any market validation, which does not have validation of the founder himself or herself, and which does not have validation about the product and whether that works, whether it is something that can grow, etc. So the investor is just putting money into a very risky bet. On the other hand, if you have shown some initial traction where users are adopting your product or customers are liking your product and the feedback loop is good, people are coming back to you, there's some word of mouth, etc. And if you go for funding at that stage, investors are going to be much more comfortable funding a business of that sort because you've eliminated some of those earlier risks that I mentioned. So the whole bottom line is that raising funds is really not the central thing that startups do. Unfortunately, that is how a lot of people perceive it to be. And if you by any chance seen the TVF series called Pictures, you will find that it's a beautifully written series about startups and how startups begin and the origin stories of a startup. The sad part was that they never talked about anything other than raising funding, and I was a little disappointed with that part because There is so much more to running a startup than just pitching to investors and trying to get their approval. So make a startup for customers, not for investors, and work on improving your business and not improving your pitch. That's the message for today, and I'll see you in the next week's blog. If you like this video, press the thumbs up button. If you did not like it, thumbs down, but give some reaction, and leave your comments below about what you think, and I'll see you next week.